is the major epidemics and pandemics that affect the world history. We all know that we have been dealing with COVID-19 with 2.5 years. And therefore, we can accurately interpret the causes and the consequences of past epidemics. And what do you think is the epidemic? Do you know the meaning of epidemic? Also, we can call also epidemic or outbreak. Do you know the meaning of epidemic or outbreak? What is that? Do you know it? Okay, Emre, do you know the meaning of epidemic or outbreak? What is that?
Epidemics are diseases that occur in geography and affect the high population.
Yes, you are right. Epidemics are diseases that occur in a large geography and that occur in a continent or in a country, only one country. And in world history, there were many epidemics and pandemics. Now, I want to talk about the differences between epidemic and pandemic. What is the difference between epidemic and pandemic? Do you know the difference between two of them, Mehmet?
Pandemics are spread around the world, which includes all continents.
Yes, the whole continent.
But epidemics are spread in only one country.
Yes, only one country or two countries. Epidemics occur only one or two countries, only one region. But pandemics spread all over the world or all over the continent. And also, do you know the COVID-19? Is COVID-19 is epidemic or pandemic, Zeynep? Which one? COVID-19. Yes, you are right. It is pandemic, of course, because COVID-19 spread all over the world. In Europe, it has occurred in Europe, in Turkey, in Asia, in Africa, the whole world. So COVID-19 is a pandemic. Okay, now I want to talk about some pandemics and epidemics that affect the history of the world today. Look at the board please. History of infectious diseases. And some of them here is smallpox. I will explain the whole diseases today. One of them is smallpox. And the other one here, history of infectious disease outbreaks and vaccines timeline. Look at the pictures please. Here is 1796 is smallpox, 1885 is rabies. The history of vaccine requirements and vaccine research highlights. We are going to talk about the vaccines soon. And at first, what are the causes of epidemics and pandemics affecting the world history? What are they? There were some causes. And what are they? Zeynep?
Some animals, like some birds or rats.
Yes, some animals, they can cause epidemics or pandemics too. For example, coronavirus, I think bats causes coronavirus in China. You are right. Yes, Mehmet?
Global warming.
Yes, global warming is definitely true. Global warming also causes some epidemics. Yes, Emre?
Water pollution.
Water pollution, yes, dirty water especially, they can cause some outbreaks, some diseases. Okay, you are right. Now, and some epidemics that affect the world history. I want to talk about them. Smallpox, measles, Spanish flu, and COVID-19, at last COVID-19. But before them, now I want to explain the causes of some epidemics that affect the world history. People harm the nature, the working of nature, so some diseases occurred. Decrease in clean water resources, it is to water pollution, that means water pollution. If people cannot drink clean water, some diseases can occur, of course. And climate change, it means global warming, climate change, and related interaction between people with war, migration, and trade. Especially, increased interaction can cause a lot. Now, what epidemics do you know that affected the world history? What epidemics are mentioned about them? Smallpox. Smallpox was very common illness, was a common disease in the old times, in the past. It is known that it first appeared in China in the 4th century CE, smallpox. Yes, here. Smallpox is here. Yes. It is known that it first appeared in China in the 4th century, and also it was seen in Europe and in the Near East in the 6th century. Smallpox, which caused blistering wounds on human body, has become one of the diseases that cause the most human deaths of worldwide. Millions of people, I think hundreds of millions of people died from this disease. And only a vaccine could prevent this disease. So, Dr. Edward Jenner invented this COVID vaccine in 1775. But before the vaccine, many people suffered from smallpox. What were the symptoms of smallpox? I think you don't know the symptoms because now there is no smallpox disease nowadays. But when people had a smallpox in the past, some wonders, some blistering wounds on human body. It caused some wounds, especially on people's faces, on their hands, and on their arms, or the whole body. And the symptoms of headache, high fever, maybe vomiting, and a few days later from these symptoms, red spots appeared first of people's faces, hands, and arms. And with this disease, lots of people had become blind, especially children couldn't see very well or they died. But thanks to the vaccine, this disease disappeared in 1796, the vaccine was discovered. And 2/3 of those who contracted this disease died. The rest were blinded and had to spend the rest of their lives with scars on their faces. The first remedy against this disease was human vaccination. The crops were taken from the wounds of those who had mild smallpox. They were captivated and they were waited to go water. Edward Jenner discovered the vaccine in 1775. This disease, which killed more than 100 million of people, was wiped out in 1977 thanks to the vaccine. After 1977, there was no people who suffered from smallpox. It disappeared thanks to the vaccine, of course. And the other pandemic that affected world history is the measles. Do you know the meaning of measles? Lots of kids in Turkey, lots of kids had measles before the vaccines, of course. Measles mean small red spots on your skin. And it always scratches very much. And its symptoms were fever, very high fever, scratching red spots on your body. And the measles, it is a contagious infectious disease that is common all over the world, especially in children. The measles vaccine first found in 1963. In the year before the vaccination, almost all children had measles by the time they reached at the age of 15. It is reported that 48,000 people were hospitalized in the pre-vaccination period, which is an estimated between 400 and 500 deaths in a year. In a year, 400 or 500 people died from the measles, before the vaccination, of course, before the vaccines. Unfortunately, in 2018, measles cases doubled worldwide. And in Turkey too, in our country too, reaching 229,000 measles cases were seen since 2018. Vaccination should be intensified to end off this disease. And the other pandemic is Black Death. Plague. Do you know the meaning of plague in Turkish? What is plague? Black Death. Or you can say Black Death. Yes, it is veba. In Turkish it means veba. And plague. I don't know where it is, but maybe we can find plague. I cannot see here now. Yes, here is measles. Its vaccination was found in 1963, but maybe here is not Black Death. I will show you later. And plague. There have been three major plague epidemics in the world. The first is plague of Justinian plague. It started in Egypt, 541. Since it caused the weakening of Byzantine Empire, it was named Justinian plague, Justinian's plague, in the honor of the empire. It is thought that 50% of the population of North Africa, Europe, Central and South Asia was lost in this pandemic. The second one is Black Death, the worst one, the worst plague pandemic, the Black Death. This name was given because of the black swellings. Due to changes in the world climate in 1330s, the waters in the steppes were destroyed, and the hot and dry winds drove bacteria, flies, and animals to the settlements of Mongols. This disease was carried to Asia and Europe through trade and migration, of course. And its consequences was very bad. It was a disaster. After 1348, it hit Europe, plague hit Europe with the violence of several nuclear wars. Millions of people died from plague. And since there was no burying death, they tried to get rid of the corpses by digging mass graves. Because most of people died or ill, there were no people to dig the graves for death. So they did very big graves for the dead people. And what happened to what did they do to prevent this Black Death disease? The quarantine practices started. People were quarantined, like COVID-19. And sewerage system was started in Europe. And throwing garbage around was banned. Before that, everywhere was full of garbages. Everywhere was full of dirty water, garbages, everywhere was very dirty. But after then, they banned it. People mustn't throw the garbage on the streets around. It was banned. The plague changed the life of medieval society in every way. It caused the collapse of feudalism, for example. A third of the European population was stricken with diseases. Half of the European people died with Black Death. The third plague pandemic pandemic started from China in 1885 and spread to other countries, especially India. 12.5 million Indians died in the third pandemics of plague. It could be slowed down with the preventive medicine and some precautions and the use of antibiotics. Antibiotics are very important to know, and at that time antibiotics were used to prevent to this disease. After the 1950s, it could be slowed down. And Spanish flu. Have you heard anything about Spanish flu? Have you heard about it, Spanish flu? Okay, I think you haven't heard Spanish flu. And why people called it Spanish flu? Did it begin in Spain? Do you know it? No, yes, it didn't start in Spain. Spanish flu started in America in World War I. Some soldiers were sent to the World War, and they spread this disease to other soldiers and to the other countries. Spanish flu is one of the most terrible pandemics of all time. It caused close to 50 million deaths between the years 1898 and 1919. During the World War I, America started into military garrison in Kansas. When America sent its soldiers to France by ships to join the war, the disease spread all over the world. And why is it called Spanish flu? The reason is here. Yes, ma'am.
I think it was called Spanish flu because the first announced in Spain that such disease exists.
Yes, you are right. It is certainly true. It was first announced in Spanish newspapers. At that time, Spain did not participate in the war, and newspapers were not censored. They could write whatever they want, and Spanish flu was announced in the newspapers of Spain. So we called it Spanish flu. And it disappeared over time with a decrease in human mobility. When the First World War was over, the soldiers returned to their homes, and Spanish flu was slowed down. After that, it disappeared. And the last one, COVID-19. We all know that COVID-19 is a pandemic, and we have been dealing with COVID-19 with, I think, 2.5 years. Have you ever had coronavirus? Is there anyone in this classroom? Have you ever had coronavirus? Say that. Have you had? No, you are lucky. You are lucky girl, I think. I had coronavirus. It was really very bad. Yes, Mehmet.
I had coronavirus.
You have had coronavirus. And what were the symptoms for you?
I lost my smelling.
Yes, but you couldn't smell.
Yes, I also couldn't taste anything.
Yes.
I also had very high fever. It was very bad.
All of the symptoms, I think you named. Yes, all of the symptoms. Most of us have had coronavirus, and the symptoms were, some of us, they were mild symptoms, but some of us, they were severe. For example, I had very severe coronavirus because I had a very high fever, I had a terrible cough, and I went to hospital, stayed in hospital for only 1 day, but then I got over it. Okay, COVID-19, it means coronaviruses. It's the family of coronaviruses. Are a family of viruses that can cause respiratory illnesses. Respiratory means our nose, our throat, breathing system, respiratory system. It causes very bad effects in humans' respiratory systems. They are called corona because of crown-like shapes, crown-like spikes on on the surface of the virus. So scientists say it's coronavirus. Severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, Middle East respiratory syndrome, MERS, MERS, and the common cold are examples of coronavirus that cause illnesses in humans. It was first reported in Wuhan, China, you know that, in 2019. After that, it has spread all over the world. And it has still spread to every country around the world. Coronavirus is likely to spread. The virus travels in respiratory droplets released into the air when an infected person coughs, sneezes, sings, or breathes near you. You may be infected if you inhale these droplets. So, if we want to prevent coronavirus, what should we do? What should we do if we want to prevent it? Yes,
We
Amy.
should wear masks.
We should wear masks, especially in crowded places, in public transportation, maybe at school. And what else? What should we do? What else, Joanna? What can we do? Hands. Yes, we should wash our hands. And maybe we shouldn't go very crowded places. We shouldn't go to very crowded places. We can prevent, and of course, we should get what? Vaccine, of course, to prevent coronavirus. It is the last pandemic, coronavirus. I hope we won't go back quarantine days again, because we know that all of us was in quarantine last year. Schools were closed, shops were closed, everywhere was closed. So I hope we won't live these days again. And today we have learned something about the epidemics and pandemics that affect world history. And now I want you to do some researches. The other epidemics, okay? For example, you can research the other epidemics, SARS or MERS or whatever you want. You can go home and you can search the other epidemics or pandemics and write a very short paragraph for us. And then you can come to class and read it, or you can present